Your wife is still alive. Thomas Becket froze. The voice came from behind him, quiet, childlike, yet so piercing that it sliced through the drizzle blanketing the memorial garden. Slowly, he turned to face the speaker. A young black girl stood just beyond the circle of mourners. Her oversized hoodie clung to her thin frame, soaked from the rain. She couldn't have been older than 10. Her eyes were wide, serious. "What did you say?" Thomas asked, his voice cautious. "I saw her," the girl said again. "Your wife. She's not dead." One of his assistants chuckled under his breath. "Let's get Mr. Becket out of the rain." "Quiet," Thomas snapped. The girl took a step forward. "I was there the night she came out of the water. She was bleeding. Scared. They dragged her into a van." Thomas's jaw clenched. "Little girl, I don't know what game you're playing, but my wife drowned in a storm off the coast. There were no survivors. We searched for weeks." She survived," the girl insisted. "I remember her." "And what makes you so sure it was her?" Thomas asked, folding his arms. "She had a scar," the girl said. "A long one. Across her left arm. Right here." She traced from her elbow to her wrist. "And short, platinum, blonde hair." She kept yelling your name. Thomas's heart lurched. Elena had gotten that scar in college falling through a greenhouse window during a student protest. She never liked to talk about it. And that hair, after her chemotherapy, she kept it short, proud, and sharp as her spirit. Still, he shook his head. "That's not possible." "Yes, it is," the girl snapped. "They didn't let her go. A man, he had a fake arm, like a plastic one. He was in charge. He told them to drag her. I saw it all." Thomas's breath caught. He stared hard at the girl. What did this man look like? White, tall, gray beard, wore a long coat. He barked orders, like he was in the army or something. He told them, "Move her before anyone sees." The girl's voice shook now, not from fear but urgency. "She saw me. Your wife looked right at me." Her eyes were full of fear, but also, like she knew I could help. Thomas blinked away the raindrops, or were they tears, gathering in his lashes? Part of him wanted to scream, to tell this child to stop torturing him with hope. But another part-tone he hadn't let speak in months was listening. "She wore a necklace," the girl added, quieter now. "Gold, with a heart, 2 letters on it, E and B." Thomas felt the world tilt beneath his feet. He hadn't shared that detail with the press. No one had. That pendant had been a 10th anniversary gift, custom made. It had never left Elena's neck. If that moment made your heart stop too, you are not alone. What would you do if someone you loved might still be out there? Like this video if it moved you, comment below where you are watching from, and hit subscribe so you never miss a story that speaks to the soul. The girl reached into her hoodie pocket. From the folds, she pulled out a small handkerchief, light blue, rain-drenched, trimmed with lace. It was fraying at the edges, but one word was still readable, sewn in gold thread. "Elena." Thomas took a slow step toward her. "Where did you get this?" "Behind the old cannery," she said. "They stopped the van there that night. I watched from behind the fence." A long silence passed. The wind swept across the marble path, ruffling the petals Thomas had left at the memorial. The world around them blurred, mourners, aides, umbrella sawl faded into the mist. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Maya." "And why are you telling me this now?" "Because no one else listened," Maya said. "I tried. I told a cop once." He laughed. "Told me to stop making up stories. But it wasn't a story. I saw everything." Thomas studied her face. Her eyes were too clear, her words too precise. He saw no signs of manipulation, just pain and truth. Behind him, one of the aides muttered, "Sir, the reporters are starting to move in." But Thomas didn't move. He looked down at the handkerchief in his palm, the golden thread catching the dim light. 1,000 memories came rushing back. Elena laughing on the yacht, reading on rainy mornings, the scar she tried to cover in summer. "You're serious," he whispered. "Maya nodded. Dead serious." Thomas turned to his assistant. "Get the car." "Sir." "Now." As the black sedan rolled up, Thomas opened the door and motioned for Maya. "Come with me." Her eyes widened. "Really? If what you're saying is true," he said, "I need your help to bring her back." Maya climbed in. The car pulled away from the memorial. Far behind them, A man in a gray raincoat lowered a pair of binoculars and tapped a small device in his coat pocket. "They've made contact," he said into a hidden earpiece. "Proceed to step 2. Back inside the car, Thomas gripped the handkerchief tightly. For the first time in a year, he dared to believe again. And that scared him more than anything. The car was warm, a stark contrast to the rain-soaked silence between them. Thomas Beckett sat in the back seat, elbows on knees, handkerchief still clutched in one fist. Across from him, Maya stared out the window, droplets streaking down the glass like slow tears. Neither spoke for several blocks. Finally, Thomas broke the silence. "Maya, where exactly did you see them take her?" "Down by the docks," she said without turning. "Behind the old cannery on Pier 14. There's a chain-link fence with a hole in it. I hide there sometimes." Thomas leaned back, his mind already reaching through the fog of the past year, chasing shadows he'd forced himself to forget. "And this man with the artificial arm, you're sure?" "Yes," she said firmly. His left arm made a weird clicking sound when he moved it. It was white, like plastic, not like a normal prosthetic. Looked military. Thomas nodded slowly. That detail lodged deep in his memory. Years ago, his company had been in talks with a defense contractor developing tactical prosthetics for veterans. The project never made it past prototype. Or so he thought. "You said she looked scared?" he asked. "She was screaming," Maya said, finally meeting his gaze. "Not loud, more like begging. She tried to get away. That's when they grabbed her, dragged her. That man with the arm gave the order." Thomas exhaled, long and heavy. "And no one saw this but you?" Maya's face tightened. "I don't matter. People don't look at kids like me, especially not black ones sleeping near dumpsters." The honesty hit him hard. He hadn't thought about how invisible she must be in the city he ruled from penthouses and boardrooms. That same city let his wife disappear, and let Maya witness it, unseen. "Why did you wait a year to come to me?" "I didn't know who you were at first," she admitted. "Not until I saw a picture of you in a magazine at the library. It said you were giving a speech at the memorial today. That's when I knew." Thomas leaned back, rubbing his temples. The rain tapped against the roof like ticking clock hands. He looked at Maya again, her shoes still soaked, fingers curled in her lap, jaw set like someone much older. He softened his tone. "Do you have anywhere to go tonight?" She shook her head. "Then you'll stay at my house," he said. "At least until we sort this out." Her eyebrows lifted. "You don't even know me." I know enough. You brought me something no one else could. Doubt." He turned to the driver. "Head to the estate." As the car curved off the main road and into the hills, Thomas tapped a number into his phone. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. "Reese, it's me. I need your help." There was a pause. "You told me you were done." "I was," Thomas replied, "until 10 minutes ago. Now I need surveillance on Pier 14, the cannery, and everything within 5 blocks. Look for signs of containment, medical personnel, military contractors, anyone with an artificial arm." Another pause. Then, "What the hell did you just step in?" "Something I buried a year ago," Thomas said, "and it's clawing its way back." He hung up and turned to Maya. "We'll start with your story. I want you to tell me every detail. Nothing's too small." Maya hesitated. "Do you believe me now?" "I believe enough to put people on the ground," he said. "And that means something." Ugh. By the time they reached the Estatia sprawling modern home perched on the cliffs, Maya's eyes had grown wide. She'd never seen a driveway this long, never smelled the sea air from behind hand-carved iron gates. A housekeeper opened the door before they stepped out. "Mr. Beckett." "Shall I?" "She's with me," he said, gesturing to Maya. "Get her something warm to wear, and food, hot food." "Yes, sir." Inside, the home was quiet and tastefully furnished walnut floors, old jazz playing low from unseen speakers. Maya's shoes squeaked faintly as she stepped in. Thomas led her to the den, offered her a blanket and a seat by the fireplace. She didn't speak as the flames crackled to life, but the tension in her shoulders eased just slightly. Dinner came: quickly grilled cheese, tomato soup, and apple slices arranged like art. Maya stared at it for a long second, before picking up the sandwich. "I haven't had real food in a long time," she said, voice barely audible. Thomas sat across from her, watching as she took careful bites. What about school? I go sometimes, when the shelters make me. He leaned forward. What would you say if I told you? If what you saw helps me find my wife, I'd make sure you never have to sleep under a pier again? Maya paused, looking at him carefully. You'd really do that? I don't make promises I won't keep. She nodded. Then I'll tell you everything. She did. From the moment she saw the van pull up, to the men in black loading Elena in, to the way one of them dropped a small box that Maya still had hidden something electronic, with strange writing. Thomas listened, absorbing every word, every gesture. Later that night, as Maya slept on the leather couch wrapped in blankets, Thomas sat in his office, lights low, phone to his ear. Reese again, the voice said. We have movement. Unregistered vehicles at the cannery, guards, no logos, and one man matching the prosthetic description. Thomas's jaw tightened. Don't engage. Just track. I want to know where they go, who they report to. Understood. As he ended the call, Thomas looked back through the glass at Maya sleeping. She hadn't lied. He could feel it in his bones. Something dark had stolen his wife from the ocean. The truth had come walking into his life wearing wet shoes and an oversized hoodie. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. The sun was barely up, casting a muted gray over the Beckett estate, but Thomas was already in motion. He hadn't slept. Instead, he had spent the night poring over maps of the harbor, blueprints of the cannery, and security footage from his private archives footage he paid to have filtered through the years for anything suspicious. None of it had shown Elena. But now, Maya's words had turned those ghost pixels into possibilities. In the dining room, Maya sat at the edge of a tall chair, eating scrambled eggs and toast with the kind of careful focus only hunger and suspicion can create. A fresh hoodie hung from her shoulders, new, clean, still smelling faintly of detergent. She looked smaller in daylight, but no less sure. Thomas stepped in, coffee mug in hand. Did you sleep well? Maya nodded between bites. The couch is softer than anything I've ever slept on. He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. Good, because today, I need your help. Her eyes narrowed. You want me to come with you? Yes. I need you to show me exactly where it happened. Every step, every turn. Your memory is better than any satellite feed. She swallowed hard. Okay, but if they're still there, they won't see us, he said. We'll be careful. An hour later, they were downtown. Thomas's black SUV rolled slowly through the fog-covered streets, windows tinted, engine humming low. Maya guided him past warehouses and chain-link fences, pointing from the back seat with small, decisive fingers. There, she said, behind that dumpster, that's where I was hiding. The vehicle stopped across the street from the cannery. From the outside, it looked abandoned, rusted metal, broken windows, and a giant faded sign reading, New England Seafood Company. But Thomas had lived too long, and too deep in the corporate underworld, to believe in broken windows anymore. Wait here, he told Maya. Reese is already inside. Seconds later, his earpiece crackled. We've got movement. One guard. South exit. No uniforms, but definitely armed. Thomas looked at Maya. You said they took her around the side? Yeah, the left side, that door under the light. He nodded, then stepped out of the vehicle, his long coat flapping in the wind. Reese met him at the corner, crouched in the shadows. No signs of recent activity inside, Reese whispered. But I found something weird. They slipped through a back entrance, the smell of salt, rust, and rot clinging to the air. Inside, the building was a husk. Dust coated every surface. But in one corridor sealed off by a recently replaced padlock, Reese had found a room. When Thomas entered, the smell shifted. Bleach, metal, something surgical. The space was small, no bigger than a hospital room. A rusted cot lay in the center. Metal restraints hung from each corner. Beside it sat a tray, still holding an empty syringe. Thomas's blood ran cold. Then he saw it scratched faintly into the cement wall near the cot. A string of letters, shaky but legible. E.B. Elena Beckett, Reese muttered. This isn't just a hideout, it's a holding cell. Thomas stepped closer, running his fingers across the letters. They weren't old, maybe weeks, no more than 2 months. His wife had been here. He closed his eyes. She tried to leave a sign. She knew someone would come, Reese said quietly. Thomas turned to him. I want the building watched day and night. If they move her again, I want to know before her foot hits the floor. Reese nodded. There's more. Across the floor, I found this. He held up a bloodied scrap of cloth navy blue silk, embroidered in silver. Thomas took it. His throat tightened. It's part of her scarf, he whispered. Back at the SUV, Maya sat with her knees pulled to her chest. When Thomas returned, she looked up, questioning. You were right, he said. Her eyes flickered with something like pride but also sorrow. She was scared, wasn't she? He nodded. Very. She looked down. I don't understand why someone would take her. She's just a lady. She's not just a lady, Thomas said softly. She's my wife. And sometimes, when people can't control a man, they go after what he loves most. Maya didn't respond, but her hands clenched tighter around her sleeves. Thomas pulled out his phone. There's someone I need to talk to. Maya, I want you to stay here. Lock the doors. Reese will be nearby. He stepped away and dialed. A man answered on the second ring. Beckett. Glenn. A pause. Thomas. It's been a while. Not long enough. Another pause. Then Glenn said, Is there a reason you're calling me after a year of silence? Thomas's voice turned to ice. I have questions. About Elena. About the insurance settlement. About why certain documents went missing. I think you need rest, Thomas. The grief is... Don't, the word cut sharp. Just tell me, do you know a man with a prosthetic arm who used to work security for off-books transport? Glenn hesitated. I think you're chasing ghosts. No, Thomas said. I'm following footprints. He hung up. Back in the SUV, Maya watched him silently. They're scared, Thomas said. That's good. Scared people are dangerous, she whispered. He nodded. But so is the truth. As they drove away from the cannery, a storm began to gather overhead, dark clouds rolling in from the sea. And somewhere, not far from that broken building, a woman with platinum blonde hair traced the scar on her left arm and whispered to the dark, Hold on, Tom. I'm still here. Maya sat cross-legged on the couch in Thomas Beckett's study, the fire flickering against her face. The silence in the room had weight, broken only by the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. She was drawing something she hadn't done in months. On a pad of fine sketch paper Thomas had given her, she etched the face of a woman with short, wavy hair and eyes filled with fear. Her pencil moved fast, certain. Thomas watched her from behind his desk, a file open before him. But his focus wasn't on the paper. It was on Maya. You've drawn her before, he said. Maya didn't look up, only in my head. Sometimes when I couldn't sleep, I'd try to remember her face so I wouldn't forget. He leaned forward. Why? Because she looked like she needed someone to remember her. Thomas felt something tighten in his chest. So much of the world had moved on. Stocks recovered. The press lost interest. But this girl, with nothing and no one, had held onto his wife's face like a sacred memory. I want you to come with me tomorrow, he said. She looked up. Where? To meet someone who worked in the harbor patrol. He owes me. He might remember something unusual from the night of the accident. Maya nodded. Okay. But Maya, he hesitated, then spoke carefully. If something ever happens, if I'm not there, I need you to run, not freeze, run, and call the number I gave you. Understand? She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded again. I'm not scared. You should be, he murmured, almost to himself. That night, as the house settled into quiet, Thomas took the sketch Maya had left on the coffee table and stared at it under the lamplight. Elena. Even without color, it was her. Every contour, every line. But something else struck him. In the sketch, Elena's eyes weren't just afraid, they were pleading. Help me, he whispered to the empty room. The next morning was dry and cold. They drove to a marina on the edge of town, where a fleet of patrol boats lay moored beside peeling docks. Thomas led Maya down to a narrow slip, where an old man in a denim jacket was smoking a cigar beside a powerboat. Beckett, the man greeted, voice like gravel. Ray, Thomas said, extending a hand. Thanks for meeting me. Ray looked at Maya, eyes narrowing slightly. This your kid? She's a witness. Ray took another puff. You said this was about Elena. I thought you buried that storm. I did, Thomas said. But she didn't stay buried. Ray squinted. What do you mean? Thomas nodded at Maya. She stepped forward, voice steady. I saw her get pulled from the water. I saw where they took her. Ray looked stunned, but not skeptical. He glanced at Thomas, then back at the girl. That night, there was something, a distress beacon, unregistered. We logged it, but then someone from Homeland called and told us to delete the report, said it was a drill. Where was it? Thomas asked sharply. Ray walked over to a cabinet inside his boat and pulled out a laminated chart. He circled an area off the coast. Right there, near Deadman's Bluff. That's where the ping came from. Thomas frowned. No one followed up? Ray shook his head. After the call, we were told to forget it. Thomas ran a hand through his hair, another thread in a web growing too wide, too fast. He turned to Maya. Do you remember hearing any helicopters? She shook her head. Just engines. Like vans or trucks. Ray handed Thomas the chart. You going after her? Yes. The old man nodded. Then watch your back. If they silence this fast, they'll come for anyone who digs. On the drive back, Maya was quiet. Her fingers traced the edge of the map. Do you think they knew she'd survive? I think they hoped she wouldn't, Thomas said. And when she did, they hit her. Why her? Maya asked. She's just your wife. Thomas hesitated, then said, she wasn't just a wife. She was working on a lawsuit tone that could have exposed half a dozen shipping executives for money laundering and human trafficking. She was weeks from going public. Maya turned to him, her eyes wide. So this wasn't about you? No, Thomas said. It was about silencing her. Maya sat back, stunned. They tried to erase her, Thomas nodded. And they almost did, until you saw her. That night, they returned home to find the gates slightly ajar. Thomas's instinct screamed. Stay here, he told Maya. He stepped out cautiously, walking toward the door. It was unlocked. Inside, the lights were still on, but a drawer in the study had been pulled open, papers spilled on the floor. Reese arrived minutes later. Someone searched your office. No forced entry. Whoever did this had a passcode. Thomas clenched his fists. That means someone close. Maya hovered in the hallway, hugging herself. Thomas turned to her. You okay? She nodded. They're watching us, aren't they? Yes. Good, she whispered. That means they're scared. He gave her a small, proud smile. Yeah, it does. Later, as they stood in the quiet living room, Maya looked at the large family portrait over the fireplace, Thomas and Elena, laughing in the sun. She's still alive, she said. I can feel it. Thomas looked at her, voice low. Then we find her. No matter what it takes. Outside, a car idled on the street, a figure inside watching through binoculars. She's more trouble than we thought, the voice whispered into a phone. The girl's memory is too good. Then make it her last, came the reply. The line went dead. But inside the Beckett house, the fire burned brighter than ever. The following morning, Thomas stood in the driveway, watching the ocean mist roll up the cliffs. He held the map Ray had marked, folding and unfolding it with the same tension he used to crush boardroom deals. But this was different. This wasn't profit, it was life. Elena's life. And now, Maya's safety hung in the same balance. Inside, Maya was quietly eating cereal, eyes darting toward every window, every creak of the house settling. The break-in had shaken her, but not broken her. If anything, it hardened her resolve. She was starting to understand what it meant to be part of something dangerous, something bigger than herself. Thomas stepped back in and handed her a small object. This is a GPS beacon. Wear it, always. She turned it over in her palm. You think they'll try again? I don't think, I know. Reese entered the room, a tablet in hand. I ran a scan through every offshore holding connected to the men Elena was about to expose. Shell companies, dummy trusts most, were dissolved after the incident. But one's still active. He handed the tablet to Thomas, who studied the screen. Ashmont Holdings, registered in Delaware. But the account activity traces back to a supply depot 2 miles from the site where Maya saw Elena taken. Maya stood up. So that's where she is? Thomas nodded. Or where they took her before moving her again. Either way, we go tonight. Maya looked out the window. What if it's a trap? Then we spring it on them first. That night, They drove without headlights down a service road that carved through coastal hills. The vehicle was dark, silent. Reese drove, Thomas navigated, and Maya sat between them with the tablet clutched to her chest. The depot looked dead from a distance, just another corrugated warehouse by the sea. No markings, no lights. But through a pair of long-range binoculars, Thomas saw what he expected. Movement. 2 men smoking outside, another pacing near the loading bay. All dressed in plain clothes, but standing like soldiers. They parked a quarter-mile away and continued on foot, keeping to the shadows. Maya, now wearing a dark hoodie and gloves, followed their steps exactly, silent and light. Reese motioned them down. Thermal scans show 3 inside, 1 stationary, possibly restrained. Thomas's heart pounded. Elena? Can't confirm. They crept around the rear, where an old vent provided access to the building's underbelly. Reese pried it open, and one by one, they slid inside. The crawl space was tight and smelled of rust and salt. Maya squirmed through like a cat, her small frame perfectly suited for the narrow path. At the end of the duct, Reese used a fiber optic camera to peer into the room below. "What do you see?" Thomas whispered. He paused, then whispered back. 1 man standing, arms mechanical. "It's him." Maya's breath caught. "That's the one." Reese nodded. Another man guarding a woman. Blonde, tied to a chair. Thomas's vision blurred for a second. His heart thundered so loud it seemed to fill the narrow space. "We go in hard," Reese said. "Quiet. Fast." They exited the vent into darkness, moving silently behind crates and support beams. Then, with perfect synchronicity, they struck. Reese tackled the guard by the door, his silencer puffing twice before the man dropped. Thomas rushed toward the woman, tearing duct tape from her mouth. Elena, it's me." Her head lolled weakly, but her eyes focused. "Tom?" He pulled her into his arms. "I've got you. You're safe." But behind him, a metal click echoed. Thomas turned. The man with the artificial arm stood there, gun raised, blood dripping from his nose where Reese had struck him. "You don't know what you're doing," the man growled. "I know exactly what I'm doing," Thomas replied, shielding Elena. The man sneered. "She had evidence. Names. They paid me to make it disappear. But she wouldn't die. Should have just let the sea finish the job." Thomas took a step forward, dropped the weapon. Before he could answer, a voice from the shadows barked, "Drop it first." Maya stepped out, a heavy flashlight in both hands. It wasn't a gun, but she held it like one, fearless. "You again," the man spat. "You're just a stupid kid." Maya's eyes narrowed. "Then why are you scared of me?" In the moment of distraction, Reese lunged and disarmed the man, knocking him unconscious with a final blow. Thomas turned to Maya, stunned. "You could have been hurt." She shrugged. "I'm tired of hiding." They carried Elena out through the same vent, her breathing shallow but steady. Outside, a black van waited. Reese's team had called backup. Medics were ready. As the doors closed, Thomas held Elena's hand. "You're safe now." She coughed, barely a whisper. "Not all of them. Gone." Thomas leaned in. "What?" Her eyes locked on his. "Ashmont, it's just one part. Others, watching." He nodded. "We'll find them." Beside him, Maya held the sketch she had brought, the one of Elena's face. "Keep it," Elena rasped, smiling faintly. "It's better than any photo." As the van sped away, Thomas looked back at the depot, dark now, but still full of secrets. This was no ending. It was a beginning, one they would face together. Thomas sat at Elena's bedside in the private medical wing of his estate, the silence between them broken only by the soft beeping of monitors. Her face, pale and bruised, was almost unrecognizable beneath layers of fatigue. Yet her grip, despite the IV running into her arm, remained strong, fingers woven tightly through his. There was still fire in her, though it burned quietly now. Maya stood at the door, hesitant. Thomas motioned her in. "She wanted to see you." Maya approached slowly. Elena's eyes flicked toward her, lips twitching into a weak but grateful smile. "The girl," she whispered. "Her name is Maya," Thomas said softly. Elena nodded. "Thank you, Maya. I saw you. That night, you didn't look away." Maya's voice caught in her throat. I didn't know what to do. I was just a kid.